All right, let's dive into the Cambodian market. We've got this awesome training toolkit, and it's full of real-world case studies, practical advice, templates, you name it. It's like a crash course in Cambodian market research.
Yeah, it really gets down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
It's not just theory, it's giving you stuff you can actually use.
Exactly. So whether you are thinking about investing, starting a business, or just, you're curious about this market, this is for you. It's like a shortcut to understanding what's going on. And one of the first things that really stood out to me is just how important market research is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This source, it really drives home the point that in a market like Cambodia, you really got to make data-driven decisions.
Yeah, no flying blind.
Right. There's just so many unique opportunities, but also a ton of challenges.
They have this hypothetical scenario in the source where they talk about like, okay, imagine a market of 10,000 people, right?
Right.
And let's say your research shows that only 20% of those people are actually your target audience.
Okay.
So, suddenly you really see why it's important to like segment and target.
Absolutely. It's about, getting that competitive edge, understanding your customers, like what their needs are, figuring out who the competition is, and even anticipating those emerging trends.
So let's say you're an entrepreneur and you're ready to kind of like conquer the Cambodian market.
Okay.
Where do you even begin?
Well, the source here suggests starting with, a pretty classic framework, Porter's Five Forces. Probably familiar with it. But it's all about analyzing how competitive your industry is.
Right. It's like scoping out the battlefield before you even step foot on it.
Exactly.
And they have this really interesting example in here where they use this fictional company, a breakfast cereal company called, I think it's Angkor Dream Co.,
Oh,
Ltd.
yeah, Anchor Dream. I love that example.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about it is that even though it's this fictional company, the challenges that they're dealing with are very real for businesses in Cambodia.
Right. Yeah.
Like, for instance, they talk about Angkor Dream's weaknesses, things like high buyer power
Okay.
and just intense competition.
Yeah, because in Cambodia, people have a lot of choices when it comes to breakfast, right? Like they're not just automatically going to pick cereal.
Right. Especially if they're price sensitive.
Totally.
And then there's the whole threat of substitutes, right? Maybe people skip breakfast altogether, or
Yeah.
they grab some street food, or just have a quick coffee.
It's like Angkor Dream is like surrounded, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But this five forces analysis, it really helps them kind of see those pressure points and then, think strategically about how to deal with them. Like
Right.
maybe they need to focus on a niche market or really play up the fact that they use local ingredients or find some other way to stand out in this crowded market.
Yeah, totally. And that's the power of these frameworks, right?
Yeah.
It's not just, it helps you make these informed decisions rather than just guessing.
Okay, so we've mapped out the battlefield with Porter's five forces. What's next?
Well, now we got to zoom in on your specific business. And for that, we use a SWOT analysis.
Okay.
And it's all about, figuring out your internal strengths and weaknesses, but also those external opportunities and threats you might face.
And I gotta say, this source, they provide like a ton of detailed SWOT analysis examples, like from all different industries in Cambodia.
Oh, yeah,
It's really helpful to see how these frameworks actually play out in real life.
it is. Let's start with the furniture industry, right? Huge sector in Cambodia. You might be surprised to know that one of their biggest weaknesses is their reliance on kind of outdated machinery.
Oh, interesting. So they have access to all this great local material, right? Like wood and bamboo. And there's this growing demand for, locally made products, but they're being held back by technology.
Exactly. And that actually creates a really interesting opportunity. Someone like you could come in with state-of-the-art technology, help them improve their quality, their efficiency, and that could be a real game changer.
It's like a hidden opportunity that you would only really see through doing this SWOT analysis.
Absolutely.
What about local furniture retail? They've got a pretty strong distribution network already in place, right?
They do. But what they're really struggling with is like a weak online presence.
Okay, yeah.
And this is a big challenge, especially as more global players are kind of entering the market with these really sophisticated e-commerce platforms.
It's like David and Goliath. Those local shops are going to have to up their digital game if they want to survive.
Exactly. And then, of course, you have the hotel industry, which, tied to Cambodia's booming tourism sector.
Yeah, that's a big advantage,
It's a
right?
huge advantage.
But they're also very dependent on seasonal travel, which can make their income kind of unpredictable.
Right. And they're facing this whole new kind of competition now from those online platforms that offer like peer-to-peer rentals and stuff.
Right. So even though tourism is doing well, Cambodian hotels can't just sit back and relax.
No, definitely not.
They got to think about how to diversify, improve their online presence, and just find ways to stand out, really.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting. The source also includes a SWOT analysis for Netflix in Cambodia.
Wait, Netflix? That feels kind of random.
Yeah, it might seem a bit out of place, but it's actually really clever.
Yeah.
Because it shows you that these frameworks, they apply to any business. Doesn't matter how big or small you are, what industry you're in.
Right. So it's about applying these principles no matter what.
Exactly. Like one of Netflix's strengths is obviously its, massive library of original content.
Yeah, that's a big draw.
Right. And they were kind of the pioneers in this whole online streaming thing. So they've got that name recognition, that trust that newer platforms are still trying to build.
Yeah.
But one of their weaknesses is that content instability. Like what's available on Netflix today might be gone tomorrow. And that can be frustrating for viewers.
Plus, they've had some price hikes recently, which haven't always been super popular.
True. But despite those weaknesses, they've got some pretty significant opportunities in Cambodia.
Younger generations are really moving away from traditional TV, right? And streaming services are becoming more popular, and internet access is getting cheaper and more widespread, so that obviously works in their favor.
Exactly. But they also face some threats, like the fact that there's more and more streaming competitors popping up all the time, and the cost of licensing content is, constantly going up.
So even Netflix has its work cut out for it.
They do. That's why this SWOT analysis is so valuable. It forces them to think strategically and adapt to this unique market.
Okay, so we've talked about how these Porter's Five Forces and SWOT analysis can really help businesses understand the competitive landscape and, figure out their own strengths and weaknesses. But what about the customer?
You're right. At the end of the day, it's all about understanding your customers, right? Especially in a market as dynamic as Cambodia. And I think that's where this toolkit really shines, because it gives you like this practical roadmap for getting inside the minds of your target audience.
So how do we do that? I mean, it goes beyond just like basic demographics, right? Like age and gender, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Demographics are important. But this toolkit, it really emphasizes the need to go deeper. Right? It's about understanding their motivations. Like, what are their pain points? What are their goals? How do they make decisions? Basically, anything you can learn to get a better understanding of what makes them tick.
It's like creating this like detailed profile of your ideal customer.
Yes.
I remember they talked about buyer personas earlier.
Yeah, buyer personas, super helpful.
Yeah.
They're like these fictional representations of your ideal customers.
Well,
but they're data-driven,
right?
So instead of just thinking about your target audience as this like faceless mass, you're creating these like really vivid profiles. You give them names, backstories, motivations, challenges. It really brings them to life.
Okay, so you're like giving your customer a face and a personality.
Exactly, yeah.
I can see how that would be really helpful in tailoring your marketing efforts.
Absolutely. So like, for example, let's say you're targeting, young professionals in Phnom Penh, right?
Okay.
Your buyer persona might be someone like Laak, a 28-year-old marketing manager.
Okay.
She's tech-savvy, ambitious, always on the lookout for the latest trends, values convenience, quality, experiences that, align with her lifestyle.
I like her already.
Yeah.
So we've got our buyer persona, Laak. What's next?
Right. So how do we actually learn more about her?
Right. How do we find out what she wants?
Well, that's where the toolkit's emphasis on surveys and focus groups comes in. And they actually provide a ton of like really specific question examples that you can adapt to your needs.
Yeah, I remember seeing those examples. They were super helpful.
Super helpful, yeah.
It's like they give you the cheat sheet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they start with some basic demographic questions like, what is your age? What is your sex? But then they go deeper. Like, what are your primary sources of information for? And then you fill in the blank with whatever product or industry you're researching.
Right.
And what factors are most important to you when making a purchasing decision for, again, fill in the blank.
Gotcha. So you're trying to understand like their media consumption habits, their decision-making criteria.
Exactly. And if you're talking about business customers, they have questions like, how many people work at your company? What are your company's biggest challenges related to whatever you're researching?
Really getting that like granular level of detail.
Yes.
Super helpful. What about, I'm also curious about the focus group questions.
Oh, yeah.
Because those are more open-ended, right?
Yes, exactly.
Designed to spark a conversation.
Focus groups are great for getting those like qualitative insights,
Mhm.
and they even provide a focus group template to help you structure those sessions.
Okay, nice.
So, like, they suggest questions like, what are your overall impressions of whatever you're researching in Cambodia?
Okay.
What are some of the biggest pain points you experience when it comes to, fill in the blank?
I love those open-ended questions because it's like you're inviting people to really share their experiences and perspectives.
Exactly, yeah.
You might learn something that you wouldn't have thought to ask about in a survey.
Absolutely. And then once you've gathered all this valuable data,
Right.
it's time to analyze it and really transform those raw insights into actionable strategies.
Okay, so we've done the research, we've gotten to know our customers, we've analyzed all the data. Now what?
Right.
How do we actually present these findings in a way that's clear and concise and compelling?
Well, this toolkit, it doesn't leave you hanging. They actually have this super detailed research presentation template. It walks you through all the key elements of like a really killer presentation.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Super helpful.
It's like the blueprint, It's like, oh, this is how you actually craft a presentation that's going to grab people's attention.
Exactly. And they really emphasize the importance of tailoring your presentation to your specific audience.
Right, because what works for an internal team meeting is probably not going to work for a pitch to investors.
Exactly. So, if you're presenting to your internal team, you might focus on like, okay, here are the key takeaways from our research, and here's how these insights can inform our marketing strategy.
Right.
But if you're talking to potential investors, you'd probably want to highlight the market opportunity
Yeah.
and how your business is uniquely positioned to capitalize on that.
Right.
But no matter who you're talking to, clear and concise communication is key.
Absolutely.
They really encourage you to use like impactful visuals, storytelling techniques to really bring that data to life.
So no boring PowerPoint slides crammed full of text.
Exactly.
It's about making the data engaging and memorable.
Right. Remember, even the most brilliant research is useless if it doesn't actually lead to action. So your presentation, it should really culminate in those like data-driven recommendations.
So it's not just, here's what we found. It's like, here's what we should do
Exactly.
on what we found.
It's about turning those insights into concrete steps that are going to move your business forward.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We talked about Porter's 5 forces, SWOT analysis, buyer personas, surveys, focus groups, even how to present the findings. Like, this toolkit is a lot.
It is.
But I'm curious, what did you find most surprising or interesting about all of this?
One thing that really struck me was how much they emphasize the human element.
Okay.
Like, yes, they give you all these powerful frameworks and tools,
Great.
but they really remind you that at the end of the day, it's about people.
Totally.
It's about understanding your customers, what their needs are, what motivates them, and then using that knowledge to create products and services that they'll actually want to buy.
It's like they're saying, don't just crunch the numbers, connect with the people behind the numbers.
Exactly. And I think that's such a crucial lesson, not just for Cambodia, but really anywhere you're doing business.
Okay, so speaking of connections,
Right.
let's switch gears a bit and talk about another interesting aspect of this toolkit, the analysis of different industries in the Cambodian market.
Okay.
So we've talked about understanding your customer, but let's zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture. And I got to say, I'm really intrigued by these in-depth industry analyses they have in this toolkit.
Yeah, these are really fascinating. They really paint a picture of what's happening on the ground in Cambodia, and they highlight some really interesting opportunities.
Let's start with the furniture industry. We touched on this earlier, but, I'd love to hear more about the specific challenges and opportunities they're facing.
Sure. Well, one thing that really stands out is this tension between traditional craftsmanship and this need for modernization. Cambodian furniture makers, they're known for their skill, their artistry, but they often lack access to the latest technology and equipment.
It's like they're kind of caught between two worlds,
Yeah.
trying to preserve their heritage, but also compete in this global market.
Exactly. And that creates a really interesting opportunity, right? Someone like you could come in, kind of bridge that gap, bring in new technology that could help them, streamline their production, improve their quality, maybe even expand into new markets.
Yeah, it's like taking their traditional skills and giving them a turbo boost,
Exactly.
which could be a win-win.
Absolutely. And speaking of win-wins, the source actually points out that the Cambodian government is really actively promoting local production. They're supporting small and medium enterprises in the furniture industry.
So there's a real push to develop the sector,
Oh,
which is great news for anyone, looking to invest or do business in Cambodia.
definitely. And you've also got this global trend right now that's moving towards more eco-friendly and sustainable furniture,
Right.
which aligns perfectly with Cambodia. They have, an abundance of natural resources. They've got this long tradition of handcrafted furniture.
So they have the raw materials, they have the skills,
hmm
they've got the government support, and now there's this growing market demand for sustainable products. It's like all the pieces are there.
It is, but of course it's not without its challenges.
Hmm.
Competition from imported furniture, particularly from China and Vietnam, is a major threat.
Right, so they're going to have to find ways to differentiate themselves, whether it's through, unique designs or superior quality or really emphasizing that sustainability angle.
Exactly. And then you've got the issue of skilled labor shortages. The industry needs more trained artisans, designers, production managers to really reach its full potential.
So there's a real opportunity for investment in training and education.
Absolutely.
Not just the technical aspects of furniture making, but also, design and marketing and things like that.
For sure. Okay, now let's shift gears a bit and talk about local furniture retail.
Okay.
This is where this battle between tradition and modernity is really, heating up.
I can imagine. I'm picturing those charming little furniture shops you see all over Phnom Penh, and suddenly they have to compete with these online giants that are offering, sleek websites and next day delivery.
Exactly. It's a clash of the titans.
Yeah.
And as we discussed earlier, local retailers are really struggling to keep up with this digital revolution. Their online presence is often pretty weak. They're lacking those sophisticated e-commerce platforms that consumers are coming to expect.
Right, so they're at a disadvantage, especially when it comes to reaching those younger, tech-savvy consumers.
Yeah. But, they do have some advantages. They have these strong distribution networks. They have those established relationships with local suppliers and customers.
Right, it's that personal touch, that online retailers can't really replicate.
Totally.
But they need to find a way to blend that personal touch with a more modern digital approach.
Absolutely. And the source actually suggests some interesting strategies, like partnering with local delivery services to offer, faster, more convenient shipping.
Right, so they're leveraging their existing strengths while also adapting to the changing market.
Exactly. And then there's also the opportunity to really tap into this growing e-commerce trend in Cambodia. More and more people are shopping online, so local retailers need to make sure they're visible and accessible in that space.
It's like they need to build a bridge between their physical stores and the virtual world.
Exactly. Okay, now let's move on to the hotel industry.
Okay.
Obviously, a major player in Cambodia's economy.
This is one sector that was hit hard by the pandemic,
Yeah, it was.
but it seems to be bouncing back strong.
It is. Tourism is definitely picking up again. But the landscape has changed. And the source, they point out that Cambodian hotels are facing this whole new set of challenges from those online platforms that are offering, peer-to-peer rentals.
Just like Airbnb is shaking things up,
Yeah,
not just in Cambodia, but all over the world.
exactly. And that means that hotels really need to find ways to differentiate themselves. Offer those unique experiences that you can't get from just a rental property.
Right. So they really need to play up their strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Things like personalized service, the cultural immersion you get from staying at a hotel, that sense of luxury and pampering.
Yeah, totally.
It's got to be more than just a place to sleep.
Right. And there's also this growing demand for ecotourism and sustainable travel, which is a perfect fit for Cambodia.
Oh, absolutely.
They've got, this incredible natural beauty, this rich cultural heritage.
So they can really capitalize on that trend by offering, eco-friendly accommodations, promoting responsible tourism practices, partnering with local communities.
Exactly. And the source points out that there's a lot of potential in the luxury and boutique hotel segments, catering to those travelers who are really looking for something unique and personalized.
Right. So it's about moving beyond those mass market offerings.
Yeah.
And creating something really special and memorable.
Exactly. And finally, let's talk about a sector that might seem a little bit, unexpected in this context.
Okay.
The entertainment industry, specifically online streaming services.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about Netflix earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to hear more about the broader trends in this space.
Sure. Well, one thing that's clear is that streaming is on the rise in Cambodia, just like it is in a lot of parts of the world. Younger generations, they're moving away from traditional television. They're embracing these online platforms.
Yeah, it's all about that on-demand content. Watch what you want when you want on any device.
Exactly. And that's creating a huge opportunity for streaming services like Netflix, of course, but also for local players, people who can offer content that's really tailored to Cambodian tastes.
Right, so there's a real chance for Cambodian filmmakers, producers, content creators to kind of tap into this growing market.
Absolutely. But there are challenges, of course, like piracy, for instance. That's a major problem in Cambodia. People are used to getting their entertainment for free. So these streaming services, they're going to have to convince people that it's actually worth paying for.
So they need to offer compelling content, a user-friendly platform, and maybe even experiment with like tiered pricing models.
Exactly. And, as internet access becomes more affordable and more widespread in Cambodia, the potential for growth in this sector is huge.
It really is. It's exciting to think about all the possibilities, not just for, the established players like Netflix, but for local entrepreneurs, content creators, people who can bring a fresh perspective to this market.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes this toolkit so valuable, right? It gives you this glimpse into the future of the Cambodian market.
Yeah.
It highlights the challenges, the opportunities that lie ahead. It's really like a roadmap.
It is for anyone who's looking to, invest, do business, or even just understand this fascinating and evolving market.
Exactly. And it reminds us that success in Cambodia, just like anywhere else, it requires a deep understanding of the local context. You got to be willing to adapt and, have a passion for innovation. So as you explore your own ventures, we encourage you to, embrace the insights from this toolkit, think creatively, and always keep that human element at the heart of your strategy.
It's been a fascinating deep dive into the Cambodian market, full of valuable insights and practical advice. We hope you enjoyed the journey and that you're feeling inspired to explore this dynamic and promising market. Until next time, happy exploring.